It could have been a normal evening, but at the end of the day, a terrible incident occurred, causing everyone in the area to gather around an ambulance. Medical staff asked everyone to disperse and not crowd in front of the car, as every second could cost a life. The cliché of a time traveler in all its glory, an orphan with nowhere to go. Exhausted by work to the point of death, she died in complete solitude. In her death throes, all the web novels she had read flashed before her eyes, and the girl had only read light stories in case of relocation. She always had thoughts that maybe she would wake up as a noble lady in the boudoir of a love story. Although, judging by her luck, she will most likely end up in the world of hunters or magicians. With all that, no one forbids her to dream, to find herself in some romantic world where everything is ideal, harmonious. Exactly the opposite, in contrast to her already past first life. She dreamed that if this happens, the new life will be different, but in reality, everything happened just like that, only a little differently than she thought. The lady finds herself in front of a mirror in a dark room with some books and documents on the shelves. But for some reason, she doesn't even shudder from this whole situation. And then a notification appears in front of her. Welcome. You have taken the first step into a new life as Celia Welf. Look for clues about yourself in the agency. Current job rating, F, reward, new client, 500 cash. She immediately realized that Celia Welf was her new name in this world, which she very quickly accepted. The only problem is that she doesn't remember that name and has absolutely no idea whose body she's in right now. There was no choice. She had to slowly turn around and look at this room to at least roughly understand what awaited her next. It is not difficult to guess that, judging by the far from presentable room and the overall environment, she is definitely not a noble maiden from a romance novel. There are clearly few bright colors and pleasant things in her life. The girl noticed a sign on the door and a license on the table, after which she concluded that most likely she was not the last person. And it is quite possible that she is some kind of director or a person holding a high position. And that is already interesting. As soon as she looked to the side, there was a gorgeous blue bouquet on the table, which she hadn't even noticed at first, and also some kind of note on fire, to which her hand immediately reached out, because there could certainly be some other useful information there. Or maybe not. As expected, it was not in vain that she took this note. It turned out to be an anonymous congratulation on the opening of a private investigation agency. And at the end, it was also stated that this anonymous person misses her very much. Probably the note was specially made in the style of her profession. And this person might not have hidden his identity. But now the main thing is not this, but that everything is somehow turning out much more serious than she thought. It turns out that she has become a secondary character who endlessly weaves intrigues in a fantasy world, and also engages in petty blackmail and extortion, trying to protect the main character by any means possible. This is all very interesting, of course, but for now, Celia is not sure that she is ready to live in constant risks and at such a pace. Meanwhile, she receives a new notification, mission completed, reward 500 coins and access to a new client. While she was getting used to all these circumstances and accepting her new self, someone's carriage arrived at this address. Celia didn't hear anything, she was far from the window, so if that person came to her, she would be very scared. And for now, the girl is thinking about being the director of a private detective agency. A dubious pleasure, but if you think about it, then all this can be perceived as a free pass to a real-time novel. And in the meantime, that person is already approaching the door. She heard his steps in the corridor and realized that this someone was approaching right to this office. A man in a knee-length black cloak walks in, and he doesn't even bother to ask if she has time or desire to talk to him. He looks like he is the director, and it was she who came in here without his permission and not the other way around. And the thunderstorm outside is far from relaxing. These sounds only depress the atmosphere. The lady does not understand who it could be and what he wants from her, especially at such a time. The only thing she managed to notice was that there was madness splashing in his eyes, and it was real madness. She looks at him closely, but as soon as he starts to approach, she already wants to give in and do everything just so that he doesn't touch her. Because of fear, Celia somehow didn't think that he could be the most ordinary client who found time only at night, which is why he seems so gloomy. While the rain is starting to subside little by little, she has already offered him to warm up, made tea herself, and is trying to carefully find out how she can help him. It even became a little lighter outside, the clouds cleared up, and this had a huge impact on her well-being. Now she feels much better. So far, he hasn't said anything bad to her, hasn't harmed her. So the girl feels more or less normal with him and doesn't even hint that it wouldn't hurt for him to at least introduce himself. All this time he sat in front of her absolutely silently, as if she were his servant who was obliged to please him. Less than half an hour later, this mysterious client finally spoke up. He said that this was the only place he could file a claim in a hurry, and for some reason he also said that the service here was disgusting. Although he has no idea that today is her first day in this world and she has no idea how everything works here, she could have spoken to a stranger more softly, because after such words she has every right to refuse and ask him to leave the office, but the girl restrained herself and tried to remain a pleasant conversationalist, unlike some. After some time, he throws some documents on the table. There are so many of them that Celia is even horrified. Then he said 2 words, looking for a woman. And the girl had to clarify what was what because he was somehow taciturn, as if he thought that she should figure everything out herself. As soon as she started talking, he, gritting his teeth, said the name of the person they would be discussing. Her name is Chelsea Graden. They are no longer married. Chelsea one day decided to leave him. And to this day, the guy cannot accept the fact that he is so bad that his girlfriend ran away from him. He really loved to control her in everything, to know where she was every second of her time, and did not expect that she could do this to him. Every day he asked himself the same question. How dare she leave without his permission, when before she couldn't even start eating without his permission? After that situation, he calls her stupid. Although since there was a situation where someone ran away from someone, it means only one thing, that someone, that is, her, found it unbearable with him. But the guy will never admit it. He considers himself the smartest, the fairest, and that everyone around him owes him, especially his girlfriend. And whether she is loved or not is very difficult to say, because loved ones are usually not kept on a leash. They are given freedom and do everything, just so that he feels good in the relationship. Just as Celia thought my expression was already killing any desire to help, he asked if 1 week would be enough for her to find Chelsea. She tried to react normally, although she thought that usually such searches could easily take several months, and he demands to do it in just a week. And considering this situation, the request seems simply impossible. Celia immediately thought of refusing. She didn't even have time to answer him, and he was already putting a bag with an advance on the table and warning that if she didn't find it, she would never see the sun again. This phrase sounded as if from the very moment he entered this office, she was already trapped and had no right to upset him. Now she was afraid to even hint that she would not like to take on this matter. In the end, he just left. He didn't care at all whether she agreed to help him, and she didn't dare say a word. The girl received an official assignment to find the missing wife of Count Graden, a reward of 10,000 in cash, a fine for failure, death from the wrath of the protagonist. She looks at this closed door and understands that she doesn't like this life anymore. If this is how the first day in this body began, then she doesn't even want to imagine what will happen next. And she hasn't even started searching for this. After waiting for the carriage to leave, Celia screamed at the whole office that it was too complicated for the first case. And why did she encounter such injustice on the very first day? And the first client had pure madness in his eyes. You couldn't come up with anything worse on the first day. After seeing this, the girl sympathizes with the main character as much as possible and still can't believe that this is no longer just a plot in some book. This is her real life, where everything is real. The girl usually doesn't do this, but now she has no strength to restrain herself. She calls her first client crazy because there is no other way to call him. The next day, she didn't go anywhere. She dragged a bed into the office, but the thought wouldn't leave her head that there was still no peace. It so happened that she hasn't read this novel yet, so she doesn't know what will happen next and what her fate is. Although this is a love story, but here basically only part of the romance, and everything else is some kind of investigation and all that. She resisted for a very long time, but still resigned herself to the fact that this is how her second life would go, in which she would not even succeed in anything for a single day. The girl feels that she is doomed to constantly help everyone, not think about herself and not have time for anything she likes. After thinking for a while, Celia realized that the longer she idled, the more she would have to see this matter through to the end. The girl decided that she just needed to finish this as soon as possible, and then not take any clients. Just relax and enjoy life as much as she could. And if necessary, she would change her profession altogether. The only problem is that she doesn't know the original story. Otherwise, she could have found that girl in a couple of hours, but she was a little unlucky. Exactly. From the second she started thinking about what to do next, some kind of hint appeared in front of her, which highlighted the necessary book. This means that there must be some useful information in it that will push her on the right path. Just to open this book and read the required number of pages, you will have to pay for each one. At the moment, there are 500 in cash on the balance, and she has to choose whether to spend the money on one chapter or save it for later. Until a certain moment, the girl could not even imagine that the system pointed her to a book, where the plot of this novel was written from beginning to end. She thought that the hint would not be so valuable. But now, since there is an opportunity to learn about the future and everything that interested her, it is not a pity to pay any money for it. It all started like this. After the death of her parents, her uncle became the guardian of a girl named Chelsea. His goal was her inheritance. The girl lost everything, and the only way to escape from his care was her brother. She offered a contract relationship to Marquis Graden, who urgently needed a wife for the sake of his sick mother. Chelsea thought their marriage would be cold and calculating, but to her surprise, warm feelings arose between them. Despite his restraint, he loved tea, and only after learning this did she begin to sing sweets for him. They became close, admiring the summer night sky. The previous Marchioness accepted her as her own and gave her family jewels. And over time, the girl began to wonder whether she could have dreamed of such a family, even if it was created by contract. Every night before going to bed, she had the same thoughts. Could it really be that happiness she so craved? Everything was fine until one moment, on the day of the death of the previous Marquise, all her dreams simultaneously collapsed. One day, she tells him that since the reason for their marriage was his mother, since she is no longer alive, he no longer needs her. She carefully hinted at terminating the contract, thinking that it would be fair, even though she didn't want it herself. Suddenly, he reacted too aggressively to it. He took it as if she had decided to get rid of him and told her to always remember one thing: everything and everyone here is under his control. It was that very day when he began to control, and not just in what they usually control their wives, but literally in everything, her every glance and step to the side. Meanwhile, Celia initially thought that it would take her several days to read all of this, but in the end, she finished it very quickly. It's such an interesting story, but it's interesting to watch it only in lines, using fantasies. But when the girl realizes that all this is happening in the relationships of people with whom she is almost familiar, she becomes uneasy. She also doesn't like the fact that she's helping a person who doesn't deserve it. She'd rather be on that girl's side. But the guy approached her first. She had an idea to change her activity a little, not to look for people, but to help those whose freedom is being taken away. The girl has read the first chapter to the end. It is already possible to start the second, but it depends on whether she has money for it, because the second will probably be more expensive than the first. Moss! She just thought about scrolling the page and starting to read further. A system window appeared in front of her, which said that there are not enough funds on the balance, and in order to scroll the page, you need to top up the balance. Free reading will begin only in a day, but she does not have that much time. The girl figured out the system a little. It turns out that she has no money on the book balance, but in general, there is money. So to move on to the second chapter, you just need to transfer the money where needed. Just a little bit more, and she will finally find out where Chelsea ran off to. Only this balance replenishment, as it seems to her, is some kind of fraud. But more likely, she just feels sorry to spend money on it. Meanwhile, the next day came. Celia arrived at the estate of the Marquis of Graden. As soon as the girl entered the Marquis's room, she was awarded a welcome bonus of 1,000 coins. The assistant who accompanied her from the street to this room said that if she needed anything, she could call him at any time. The lady thanked her for the help and information, and when she found herself here all alone, she was finally able to relax and was glad that she did not sit there sad and started doing something, because in any case, sooner or later she would have had to do it anyway. While she was getting hints along the way, she realized that examining the Marquis's things would bring her some money, and while there was an opportunity, she needed to take advantage of it. Celia first thought about where to start, and then just started checking everything in order. The first in line was the sofa. She checked everything, the pillows, the floor, every crack, so as not to miss anything. In an attempt to touch every detail, she earned 200 coins. She received this money when she touched the window where the spouses admired the stars. She also received 200 coins for the tea set. And every time her balance is replenished, her mood also gets better. Then she sat down on the sofa to think where she could find more coins. And then she went to the table, because there must be something special here for sure, for which she would be paid a lot. After all, one of them was definitely here very often. Opening the table, the girl saw a hidden letter and immediately received 700 coins for it. It is much more pleasant to receive such sums. Naturally, she didn't pass by the letter itself. Celia carefully opened it. The following was written there. I am sending you the peaches that were picked this year. Let me know if you need cherries. The Viscount awaits your presence at the Larman estate. It's clear that Larman is the Chelsea family. Only the girl was confused by the name being too short for a greeting. It looks like some kind of order to a subordinate. At first, the girl didn't pay attention to it, but then she remembered one very important moment. As far as she knows, Chelsea got married to run away from her family, so the question arises why she still communicates with them. It seems that not everything is as clear as it may seem from the outside. Perhaps even the Marquis himself does not know much. Feeling a little tired, the lady decided to lie down on the luxurious sofa, which literally beckons her. If there was a possibility, she would lie on it for several days in a row without getting up. But there is too much to do, so this can only be a dream. There are simply some indescribable feelings on it. It is definitely better than her office, where even the bed is not as comfortable as this sofa. Celia didn't even have time to lie down for 5 minutes when the maids, as usual, entered the room without knocking to clean up. At first they didn't notice anything, but then they looked closer and eventually both she and they became afraid of each other. They probably weren't warned that they had guests today and that the girl could be here, waiting for the Marquis. Then they started apologizing and explaining that, of course, the detective would come today, but they didn't think it would be so soon. The girl pretended that everything was fine and allowed them to come in, and she hides her face out of embarrassment. It is so red that if she saw it in the mirror, she would lose consciousness. The girl started to go to that corner on purpose to be away from them, to calm down a little, and at that moment when they found something dusty and started thinking about just throwing it away, she regretted it, because she couldn't see well what they were looking at there. Celia took a step towards them and received a notification that a potentially life-threatening object had been detected. Of course, she couldn't ignore this situation. She had to somehow save herself and these maids. It's just not clear whether there is a danger if you just open the lid and see what's inside. Because if that's the case, we need to think of something urgently. The moment one of their hands touched the lid of the box, Celia simply snatched the box away and ran into the hallway saying that she would take care of it and wish them a good day. The girls stand in complete bewilderment. They can't understand how to react to this. After all, this is the master's thing, and they can't allow someone to so easily take the box with them as their property. Here is Celia already in the corridor. She is trying between the openings, but if someone wants to catch up with her, it won't help her. For now, the girl thinks that everything is under control. She doesn't hear anyone running after her, which means that she has a couple of minutes to figure out what to do with this box. But that's not all. If she is asked why she took it, she will have to explain what made her do it. At some point, she suddenly lost her fear. Although a second before that, she was very scared that holding this box in her hands, she would make herself worse. Then she began to open the lid without any doubts, and in the same second she received 800 coins on her balance. Only for what? Here, you can see only one seed, which does not look like an object that can be dangerous. After a while, she found herself in the room of the deceased Marquis, for which she received another 500 coins. Here she's going to find out some more information. Now anything will be useful, so she doesn't pass by any room. Even if it seems pointless to go somewhere, she was lucky, and some things were told to her by the maids who over many years had learned what the mistress loved, or, on the contrary, hated. One girl said that Chelsea loved fruit. Her family sometimes sent them, and another girl once treated the late Marchioness to them in the greenhouse. The late Marquis simply adored gardening. She could do it all her free time. It also turned out that the girl always treated others to fruit. But at some point, for some unknown reason, she stopped. Celia wanted to talk to him some more, but it was lunchtime, and as soon as they were told about it, everyone immediately ran to the dining room. Literally a second later, there was no one in this room. Celia understands them perfectly. She is grateful even for what she managed to learn in these couple of minutes. Judging by this information, we can conclude that fruits can be a good hook. The main thing is not to stop and continue in the same spirit. Something clearly happened between the late Marchioness and Chelsea. Her reader is literally screaming about it. As soon as she looked at this burgundy notebook, 700 coins were credited to her balance, and she realized that she needed to read it. I wonder what could be so interesting there that they gave such a reward for it. Suddenly, a note fell out of the notebook. Celia can no longer restrain herself. Her hands are shaking, and something similar to a premonition appears, only it is not yet clear whether it is good or bad. The main thing now is that no one comes into this room. Otherwise, she will either have to justify herself and explain everything, or hide the note and read it when no one will disturb her. It says the following. Dear Chelsea, I want to give you my favorite greenhouse. All the herbs, flowers, trees that I have collected throughout my life. If this is you, then I'm sure that you take care of them better than anyone else. After that, the girl began to have thoughts like pieces of a puzzle. The room of the widowed Marchioness was examined. Chelsea and the Marchioness were connected to each other like a real mother and daughter, and thus the greenhouse, Chelsea, and the widow. What could all this mean? Some more time passed. Celia's thoughts were still not free. She was in constant tension because she thinks that she is close to the solution and does not want to lose productivity. After all, she learned it only got more difficult since, in the original story, Chelsea was clearly liked. Marquis. So why did she refuse the inheritance and run away? As if she was unhappy with the greenhouse. As soon as the girl thought about it, a system window with a hint appeared in front of her. She found one of the two reasons for Chelsea's escape. Now all that remains is to choose the correct option. The first, a greenhouse. The second, a box of seeds. The third, homemade cookies. At first glance, the cookies seem trivial. The greenhouse also raises suspicions. But this is not enough for a good reason to escape. Celia chose the second option, a box of seeds. It turned out to be the correct answer, and for it she received 500 cash as a reward. After this, the girl wondered why there were these two reasons. It seemed to her that she had missed another clue somewhere. While she was thinking about this, a certain person quietly approached her, and with the phrase that she was incredibly calm, scared her very much. She turned around. Although even by the voice she understood who approached her, and began to look as if he caught her stealing something. Although she was just standing and not bothering anyone. He, as always, makes her feel guilty, although nothing happened and to calm down, and now it takes time. The lady only now realized that this was the very reason she had been trying to figure out for so long. Of course, the male lead also played a role in her running away, and if that's the case, then it all becomes clearer. Meanwhile, the guy says that she has a lot of free time, hinting that he doesn't see that she's straining herself much. Although if he only knew that she devotes every second of her time to this matter, he wouldn't say that and would be ashamed to intimidate her in this way. It's very unfair and offensive. She's trying, but he doesn't see it and doesn't appreciate it. Meanwhile, the girl asked to be given the opportunity to inspect the Marquis's room. Explains that it is important, although she doubts that he is so kind today. And he also looked at her with such a look as if she came to him from the street. They are completely strangers, and he does not understand why he should suddenly allow her to do anything. After just a couple of minutes, he agreed. Even though he didn't say anything, she still felt a strange energy from him. It would have been much better without him. Immediately after that, the system reported a reward of 800 cash. And since such accruals occur very often, this time the girl did not even pay attention to it. Now it is much more important to quickly do your business and go your separate ways. Otherwise, you can go crazy in his presence. The system also warned that there is a high level of danger in this room. And the reason is that she is under the supervision of the owner of the estate. In general, she cannot piss off this Marquis of Graden. His Majesty does not like to waste time. He said directly that if she wants to find something, then she can start already. Celia went to search. It was extremely inconvenient to do this in front of him. But what can you do? There is no other choice. He probably wants to see how she does it. But he doesn't understand that he's only embarrassing her. Otherwise, she would act much faster and more confidently. The lady had just approached the shelves. He folded his arms and asked if she had really come all this way to look at some books. And before, it didn't seem like she had the nerve to rummage through personal files. To tell the truth, she would do so with pleasure, but she has to restrain herself. Otherwise, there is a risk of simply saying goodbye to life. The first question she asked him was if the lady had any habits or favorite things. Such information could help the investigation. As usual, he is in no hurry to answer, and he even looks at her as if it was she who asked him for help and not the other way around. Then he realized that he would have to help. The girl would not be able to find out in any other way except this conversation. So he started with the fact that Chelsea loved fruits. She especially loved the ones that her family sent. Celia is somewhat familiar with this information, so she hopes that she will learn something new from him. It happened that the girl once even told him not to touch them, as if they were some kind of poisonous. Suddenly, she just touched the table where the lady forced herself to eat the hated fruits and got 600 in cash for it. It's kind of strange why Chelsea forced herself to eat fruits that she didn't like. And as far as she remembers, Chelsea forbade the maids to touch them. The very same seed in the box, which at first glance seemed very mysterious, immediately appeared in my thoughts. The second question was, has the lady ever done anything weird with fruits, like collecting seeds? The Marquis was surprised that she started talking about it and even asked how she found out about it. Apparently, he hadn't told her something before and didn't think it was necessary to talk about it. Celia knew it. The seeds were obtained from the Larmans, fruits and seeds. They are definitely somehow connected with the greenhouse. While the girl is thinking about it, the guy is standing next to her, making sure that she is definitely a detective or a fortune teller. After all these thoughts, she demanded to be taken to the greenhouse, because while she had fresh guesses, there was no time to waste. Celia accidentally touched the book at that moment and received 100 in cash, because it was the book that the main character could look at all day without taking her eyes off him. Then she looked at the cookies and the ring on the table, and in total, she also received 800 in cash for that. Meanwhile, the Marquis hints that now is a bit of an inopportune time to go to the greenhouse, but he doesn't say anything specific. Does he really think that by hiding some information he will only make it better? Because the more Celia knows, the faster she will be able to help him. She looked at him very closely. He noticed it right away and asked, what was the matter? Because it was really bothering him. After which he received another question about why he took off his wedding ring. And she asked about it as if they were married and she was personally interested in it. The guy is outraged that she thinks he is obliged to answer this question because it is his personal life and if he wants, he can keep it to himself. Celia explained that she was just wondering if it had anything to do with the changes. But if he was that uncomfortable, then no one was going to force him. Only the guy should know that the less he tells her, the longer it will take to find his wife. To some extent, it all depends not only on her, but also on him directly. One might even say to a greater extent. After some time, it became difficult for him to remain silent. The Marquis said that all the time he wanted to give her something better. The decision to get married was made so suddenly that he didn't even have enough time to buy a good ring. But even so, she still thought the trinket was beautiful, and he still finds it nice. A pink diamond was recently discovered in a quarry, and the guy thought it would suit Chelsea very well, so he made an engagement ring out of it. Celia is almost sure that Chelsea probably thought that his feelings for her had cooled. She herself would have been offended if she saw the guy's ring somewhere on the table, or anywhere but on his hand. She told him so, that the girl was probably upset when she saw that he took off the ring, because any girl in her place would have thought that there was a bad reason for it. He asks, as if nothing had happened, what the difference is since he took it off because he didn't plan to wear it anymore. Celia explains that the girl didn't know this, and from her side, it was as if he had fallen out of love with her and was thus hinting at a divorce. After this, the detective reminded that her task was to find his missing wife, but he had to heal her heart as soon as she was found, otherwise the situation could repeat itself. I'll have to do everything possible so that she no longer has the thought of running away somewhere, so that she feels good and calm with him, and most importantly, so that she sees that she is needed. All this is so elementary, but the guy reacts as if it weren't for Celia, he would never have guessed about it. When the guy looked down, it became clear that he was beginning to understand the situation much better and was no longer so sure that he was not to blame for anything. Celia is very pleased with herself. She is starting to succeed in changing this person. Partly she does it for Chelsea, because they themselves will not fix their relationship. Out of the blue, a system window pops up with the news that her rank has increased. A new system is now available to her. The current level is 0. At first she was even scared of it, but then she realized that there was nothing wrong with it. Moreover, if you look at the situation from the other side, this can help a lot. The girl should definitely get acquainted with everything as soon as she has a free minute. The lady looked at her balance. At the moment, she had already earned enough cash, more than 9,000. This cannot but please. With such an amount, she now has many more opportunities. And it is also reassuring that earning money turned out not to be so difficult. And now it's time to get back to reading the original story. For now, you don't have to think about money. There's enough for a whole library. The second chapter is about Chelsea being in constant suffering and torment. And also that in her thoughts there are only fruits. She runs from room to room, talking to herself that it's been over a month since she last ate fruit, and now she's at her limit. At first, she had never gone so long without them. And she also began to feel that she didn't have much time left. And if this continued, something terrible would happen. At some point, she was alone with herself, did not notice anyone or anything around her. Not even her husband, who looked at her for several minutes and could not understand what was happening to her. Her husband asked her to stop and tell him honestly what was going on, because he saw it and was worried that she was hiding something serious from him, and for a very long time. She smiles and justifies herself by saying that he misunderstood everything and that she just wanted to wash her hands, that's all. After that, he gently touched her face, ran his hand over her cheeks, and said that she looked exhausted, as if something was bothering her. The girl closed her eyes, did what she did, admitted that she was very cold, and then asked for one request, so that he would hug her and warm her with his body, because no warm blanket could compare to the warmth of his love. She did this very often because she knew he liked it and liked to feel useful. He really loved to watch how, thanks to small actions, she became better, and instantly. Only now, even at such a wonderful moment, Chelsea thought to herself that this marriage would only harm both of them, and he also knows this very well. Every day, waking up and falling asleep, she thought that they couldn't have true love, because everything had been fine from the very first day. Hugging his beloved, the guy promised to call a doctor because he can't watch her get worse and worse every day. Even though she wanted to believe that everything was real between them, she still saw the deception hidden behind his warm words. Every day the girl was getting closer to the decision to do what she thought she should have done a long time ago, since the day the Marquis died. She even talked to herself in his arms about how on the night of the next full moon, they would go to the harbor together. Then she will leave this place forever and disappear from his life forever. Meanwhile, the system has launched an emergency mission. Celia needs to go to Laporte Harbor and prevent Chelsea from escaping, using extreme caution. The reward for completing the mission is 2,000 cash. Naturally, without putting off the mission for later, the girl set off on her journey as soon as she received it. She somehow managed to call this carriage, although it seemed impossible, and she would have to wait until the morning. Now the only problem is to get there on time and not be late. And of all the possible days, today is the full moon. It turned out that it was too late to tell the Marquis about it, so she ran out without thinking. And the driver who agreed to take her already regretted it. Celia doesn't waste a second. She thinks about the fact that Chelsea's condition is much worse than she expected. Since childhood, The fruits that Chelsea was fed at the Viscount's estate contained poison. They knew that stopping the intake of this poison would immediately destroy her, which is why they used them against her. In this way, they wanted to keep Chelsea at their feet. They succeeded, but not for long. There are some doubts about whether everything is okay with the girl now, because she may be on the verge of death. Celia thought all she had to do was clear up the misunderstanding with the Marquis. But now she had to do something about this poison. All she wanted initially was to enjoy a romantic life in a fantasy world. But things weren't that easy and simple. It was at this moment that the system contacted her. The lady did not understand this at first and thought that there was some kind of failure, because usually the system never contacted her at night. Now she has the opportunity to view the showcase of the store for increasing characteristics, and this is exactly what she needs now. The girl has already forgotten that the system has been updated, and now she has some privileges. She started looking at the different characteristics with a smile, as if they would finish the job for her. But that's not quite true. Her eyes run wild, and she realizes that the huge amount of money she has on her balance sheet is not so big after all. If you don't buy the specs carefully, you can very quickly run out of money. Half an hour has passed, they have already arrived where they needed to. Now they need to do everything quickly to get it done before the morning. It's so beautiful around that, it's hard to focus on just one thing. In such a place, you want to relax and not think about anything important. Surprisingly, there are so many people on this street that sometimes even in the middle of the day in some park, there are fewer people than here at midnight. While everyone is happily standing in line and waiting for the journey to begin, there is one girl among them who seems to be being led to punishment. It is clear that she would not like to be here, but for some reason she is almost first in line so as not to be late, or for some other reason not to leave here. Chelsea, although she tried to be inconspicuous, was still easy to find. Even too easy. Chelsea jerked so hard that her hood fell off. The girl asked what was wrong, because in her situation, any touch felt like a loss, because it could have been anyone. Celia dressed specifically to look as different from herself as possible, and she explained the attention by saying that the girl just looks very sad unlike other people. So she thought that the person was feeling bad. So she came up to him. She even offered her help or some medicine, but the lady refused because even if she really felt uneasy, she would still be afraid to take anything from a stranger. Celia began to think what to do now, because there were only a few minutes left, and if she did not convince the girl to stay, the mission would fail. She looks at her and understands that every second can cause more and more suspicions towards her, and so Chelsea will definitely not listen to her, because it cannot be that a stranger cares so much about someone's well-being. Chelsea and the Dowager Marchioness were as close as mother and daughter. It would be interesting to know what all this means to the girl. Perhaps this is the very key that needs to be used. She could think of nothing better than to communicate with her in hints in order to play on her pity. Celia says that there is something that can wither without her, and then asked if the girl, he's just going to drop everything and move on to a new life. And Chelsea, although she understands what it's about, pretends as if it's not so. She just doesn't understand how this stranger knows about it and what this whole circus was about. Celia doesn't stop. She says so directly that the ship can return, but time will be gone forever. That's why she hopes that after her choice, the girl will not regret the decision, after which there will be many consequences that concern not only her, but also someone else. Celia, although she hoped that everything would work out for her, still doubted until the very end that such words could convince a person in such a difficult situation. She sees him as a stranger, and Chelsea looks like she's inclined to listen to the advice right here and now. Suddenly, the girl thanked for these words and began to go somewhere very persistently, which means that she leaves that one in the queue and still remains. Celia asked where the girl ran, but it's not that important. The main thing is that she didn't let her leave. She is very happy. But the guy who would have received money from her for the ticket is not so happy because her seat is not cheap. It took some time to rest and realize that the goal for the near future had been accomplished, and so quickly and brilliantly that she had not even expected it from herself. Finally, I can take off this cap, which was terribly unusual and uncomfortable. It has already served its purpose. Chelsea didn't board the ship, which means that perhaps the girl changed her mind about leaving her husband. There is a possibility that she is even going to him now. At least that's what we can hope for. Now we can start to correct the misunderstandings between the two of them. And immediately after that, everything will definitely be fine. After such a momentary relaxation, Celia became tense, because she was haunted by the thought of what would happen to her when this story ended. What she would have to do as soon as the relationship between the Marquis and Chelsea improved and became better than ever. Even if the girl returns to her old world, she will miss everything she experienced here very much. She's afraid that her meaning will be lost, and there will never be an opportunity to return here at least for some time. But who would have thought that when it will be sad about it, because initially she was upset that she got such a fate. The girl was just distracted and noticed that two people passed by and one of them asked everyone to prick up their ears and listen carefully. This luggage is surprisingly much more massive than the others and looks very suspicious, even two. She just wanted to take a closer look, got the observation skill, which also immediately improved. It looks like a human hair is sticking out of one of the cracks. And this is already very alarming, and of course, Celia could not ignore it. If it turns out that a person needed help and it passed him by, he will never forgive himself. To begin with, she began to listen. But no sounds came from there. As it turned out, she understood everything correctly. Inside, this luggage was a boy who clearly ended up here against his will. And he was also covered in bruises, as if he often finds himself in such conditions and can't change anything. And suddenly she begins to reassure herself that everything in this world cannot be so bad and that she is most likely wrong. She couldn't hold out like that for long, after all. The girl lived most of her life in another world and understands perfectly well that sometimes you need to look the truth in the eye and take off your rose-colored glasses. The box is clearly too small for an adult, which means there is someone's child inside. Since he doesn't scream or ask for help, most likely he tried to do this before, but now he has resigned himself and is not resisting. This is pure madness. The situation literally does not fit into her head. She does not even want to imagine what that person inside the luggage went through. Of course, she had been warned in advance that this place was a level S threat, but the girl couldn't even imagine that everything would be so bad. She had just witnessed a real crime. Celia remembers that when she was riding in the carriage, she acquired several abilities, one of which might be useful to her now. It is a one-time fog generator, which will blind everyone except her. Naturally, she decides to use this fog. It will probably never be as useful to her as it is right now. The girl made a decision very quickly. Now there is no turning back. Until she sorts out that child, she will not return anywhere. The situation clearly requires her attention, because otherwise she would think every day and night about how she could have helped the person, but did not do it. I wonder how it will all end, because time is passing, it will soon be morning, and if the Marquis sees that she is not in the house, he will be very angry. Celia approached these people who were carrying luggage very carefully. Perhaps from their conversation it would be clear what was going on and who their boss was. One of them asks where it would be better to put the box. He thought to show it to the boss first, but another colleague had already talked to him. He asked to leave the box somewhere here. So the girl learned that their god would not check the box personally, and this is very good because it turns out that she will not be supervised as much as there could be. The workers noticed some blue object in the sky, but did not pay any attention to it because they were very busy. Then they turned away, then looked in that direction again and noticed how a strange fog began to appear out of nowhere, which was very different from the usual one. While the fog filled the air around, Celia walked closer to this box, opened it. She was convinced that her intuition had not failed her and immediately said that he should not be afraid of her because she had come to help. The girl asked not to make unnecessary sounds, just silently. Give her a hand and trust. Otherwise, he will have to stay here and then there will be even more control over him. She herself is very worried because if anyone notices them, they will feel sorry for them and Celia will suffer in the same way. She really wouldn't want the Marquis to have to save her later. And even if he does, the boy will still remain here. So everything is very serious and responsible. If she has already started doing this, you need to go to the end. And in the meantime, the ship has already noticed the loss and chaos has begun. Their boss ordered to find the thief and that guy immediately. Otherwise, they will all have problems that they will have to deal with for the rest of their lives. Celia tried very hard to keep the fog from clearing for a long time, so she could buy some time. She thought that everything was under control and she had time. Suddenly, she felt that someone grabbed her hand and held it so tightly that she would not be able to leave. Celia looks at this man, and he says with a smile that he shouldn't have done this, namely, interfered in other people's affairs. That's why she asks why she needs other people's things, and for her, it's really possible because we're talking about a child and he calls him a thing. The girl has no idea who he is and most importantly, how he was able to get through the thick fog which slightly hinders even her movement. I wonder who this guy is. He must be special. You can even tell by his hair and eyes, although it might be a coincidence. The guy was the most scared because he thought that he had followed her in vain and that now it would only get worse. He had already imagined what awaited him next, how he would be punished for betrayal, but he just wanted to save himself. He just wanted to let go of her hand. She pulled him closer to her and made it clear that it was too early to give up, and if she took responsibility for him, then she would not give up so easily. It was a very special moment. The boy felt that she could be trusted, and after that, he felt a little calmer. He looks at her, and she looks at that guy, even though she has no idea what to do. Out of the blue, she took another risk, pushed him away, and ran away with the boy, and it worked out for her. The guy apparently didn't really want to catch up with them. He didn't even move from his place. Instead, he started picking up some of his things from the floor. Everything is turning out very strange. One can only hope that now they will no longer be in safety and everything will end peacefully. This man looks at them and smiles. He didn't even order anyone to catch up with them since he was too lazy to do it himself. As it turned out, it was the same boss. His assistant ran up to him and promised to catch up with them. But for some reason, he asked to forget about it because he still wasn't sure about choosing this order from the beginning. For him, it is much more important who that girl was because he had never met such brave people before, especially of the opposite sex. A little time passed, Celia moved away from the boy and went into a quiet alley where they would certainly not be looked for. She looked around very carefully to make sure no one was following them, although when dealing with those people, that still doesn't guarantee anything. It had been a long time since she had been so scared of anyone. The girl had forgotten the last time she had such an extreme experience. She simply asked to go down on the floor, saying that at least she was alive, but she still didn't let go of the boy's hand, apparently subconsciously afraid that something might happen to him again. The child is silent for now. He sees how hard it is for her and that before they talk, she needs to come to her senses and calm down. Celia is tormented by the question of who that guy could be. If we take into account his appearance, then he is clearly the main character, which can easily overshadow even Graden's. Suddenly, a system notification appeared in front of her. The library was being replenished. She could choose one book to read, every time, like the first time, and it's already starting to irritate him. Because of this system, he doesn't even have a normal opportunity to choose a book himself. Then she looked towards the child. It wouldn't hurt to find out something about him either, but it's unlikely that he'll be sincere with her because she's still a stranger to him. She is very sorry to look at how he looks. The boy is very thin and also covered in bruises, and some look as if they appeared just recently. It's impossible to look at that jet black hair, at his exhausted gaze, from which it's clear from the first seconds how difficult it's been for him lately. It is already clear that he is a victim of a deal between dangerous organizations. He was given away for money, which means that in the near future, the one who paid them will find out what happened and will search for him in an intensive mode. I don't even want to imagine what kind of money we're talking about. The main thing is to help him, and she'll do it in any case, even if it still sounds impossible. Celia spent some time just looking at the stars and trying not to bother her head with any thoughts. But suddenly she realized it may be that there are other stories in this world besides the affair with the Marquis and his marriage contracts. If this is so, it turns out that this world is not one continuous novel, as she thought all this time, and this is even more interesting. What if this world is actually a collection of several stories, and the girl is in the center of it all? In order for the heroes to safely reach a happy ending, perhaps she needs to guide them. It turns out that that boss could also be the main character of some other novel. If you consider that in this world the novels are intertwined together, then the chances that she will be drawn into even more crazy troubles increase many times over. In any case, it remains to accept the fact that she is in a deep trouble. Now, she will have to figure it out as she goes along. I wish I knew the answer to the question now. What should she do now if this child turns out to be the main character of another story? Then she got involved with the story of a novel about which she knows nothing at all. She thought it would be best to first find out everything from him, and only then try to do something and move in some direction. Celia asks what his name is, to which the boy replies that his name is Demon. The fact that he knows his name is already very good. After that, she wanted to know his full name, because perhaps a lot would be clear from his last name, to which he replied that unfortunately, he only had this name. Immediately after that, she had a not very good feeling, but the girl tried to keep a calm expression on her face. If you take into account his eyes, you can understand a lot. They scream. I have a terrible past and love will understand this. Who has at least a drop of intelligence? Celia also asked him where he was from, and he said, from nowhere, but the girl did not stop there. She decided to find out about his parents or guardian, but as it turned out, unfortunately, he doesn't have anyone like that either. Based on this answer, it becomes clear that the situation is as difficult as it could possibly be. But there is nothing to be done. You just need to accept it. She's pretty sure he's the exact type of hero who wandered the streets and was later spotted by the main character, which causes him to become possessive. This guy is most likely the second main character of the story, and since he has such a fate, and he is a secondary character in the novel, a person like her should in no way take care of him. Although she understands this, she still doesn't understand for herself what to do with him now, because she can't just let him go. Otherwise, sooner or later, they'll find him anyway, and all this was pointless. Had to find out if he had a place where he could go and stay safe. After this, he began to squeeze his clothes as if he began to think about it, became sad and could no longer answer these questions. The girl just now thought whether she was putting too much pressure on him, because even if he was the hero of the novel, now he is a lonely child who has no one, and if she has a drop of conscience, then the girl will not be able to abandon him on the street. Naturally, she couldn't do anything else. Celia extended her hand to him and offered, "Go with her." If he wasn't scared, of course, and he looked at her as if he didn't yet realize that this would be the first night when he would be completely safe. Here, they have already arrived somewhere, only this place is not much like the mansion where the Marquis lives. It is rather her very office, in which she found herself as soon as she came into this world. It's good that there is a fireplace here. They were able to warm up a little, and there is also a bed here, so it's definitely better here than outside. Celia decided to sit in front of the fire. It calms her down quite well, and the child in the meantime looks around. The girl was so exhausted that day, but who would have thought that she would not only find Chelsea, but also add so much responsibility to herself? Now she's thinking that tomorrow at least the Chelsea case will be closed. She'll just have to make sure tomorrow morning that the girl has returned where she needs to be. She has so little strength that she just lay down on the floor and didn't notice how hard and dirty it was. That's not the most important thing for her now. In her past life, the girl was a person from a simple family, without a fancy past and without connections, but she studied a lot and was able to find a good job. But without money and without a home, every day brought her hellish torment. But what was most painful was the realization that in that world she was absolutely of no use to anyone. Maybe that's why she was so fascinated by stories about the transmigration of souls. Even though their roles were not great, each of them had their place, and there were people who needed them. They shared both sorrow and joy together, fulfilling their purpose. Which is why, when she first realized that she had moved to another world, she was completely delighted. She had a feeling that she finally had meaning, value, something specifically for her, however. But who knew that she would become a behind-the-scenes detective pursuing the escaped heroines? To put it mildly, unlucky. A little more life at this pace, and she will definitely go crazy. She was not prepared for this, and the fact that she has held on until now is generally amazing. Somehow, unnoticed, a boy appeared in this room. She accidentally turned towards him and got scared because she didn't hear him come in. But then she relaxed because she remembered that she hadn't said anything like that out loud. He says that he just finished washing himself, and she looked at him and realized that he hadn't even dried himself. No one had probably ever told him that if water gets on wood, it will quickly become moldy, literally in a couple of days. Celia decided to wipe it off properly herself because if he did it himself, then he would still have to finish it. The guy thought that if he sat by the fireplace, his hair would dry faster, but for some reason she didn't even think about it. Of course, the girl did not contradict him. She wants him to feel as comfortable as possible here, and not think that he is causing her any inconvenience. While he was trying to wipe his head to make it go faster, the girl thought that even kittens dry their fur better than he does. It's impossible to watch this calmly, naturally. She offered her help. Maybe he'll remember and then do the right thing. Then she asked him to relax and explained that she was just a little worried that he might catch a cold. Although the chances of getting sick here are much lower than being outside, but still, extra care wouldn't hurt. She's not doing it just for the reason she said, she's just glad to do it for him. Because he probably hasn't had anything like this in a long time. Maybe with her help she will remind him of something good, of those times when at least someone close was close by. And then he says that she shouldn't do so much for him. And when Celia asked what he was talking about, Guy, that if she needs something done, she can just ask him about it. He will do whatever she wants. And he also said a very strange phrase that as long as it doesn't harm anyone, he doesn't care. And she still didn't understand that. Celia even stopped wiping his hair. She let go of the towel and even took half a step back. She apparently took his words a little wrong. The lady was clearly wary, although he gave no reason for this. The girl asks what he's saying, and he replies that it's not what she thought. He just wanted to say, so that she would accept him. But these words also sounded somehow ambiguous. It is interesting to know what he means by the word accept. She wasn't going to leave him anytime soon, but accepting him was a completely different matter. She perceived this word as something like adopting him or staying together forever. Celia wasn't shy this time. She told him straight out that, to be honest, she had no idea what he was talking about, but she only saved him because he was in danger. She also made it clear that he should just rest, and then, when he gets better, he can leave. The girl didn't understand this, but her words sounded very rude. At the same time, this situation can be looked at from absolutely different sides. On the one hand, she doesn't owe him anything and did the maximum she could. But on the other hand, when the child has been warm and safe, he doesn't want to hear something like this won't last forever. Suddenly, the child got up and started walking towards the window. Only now the girl began to wonder if he was really offended by something. The moment he passed the doors and started to approach the place where a lot of things were left, Celia exhaled because she was afraid that he was leaving her right now. She doesn't understand what he's doing. And is this really how some people can vent their anger, especially at that age, especially a boy? She asks what he is doing and how to understand all this. And he says that he doesn't see anything wrong with it. And if she still hasn't understood anything, then he is going to put things in order here. Celia asked another question. How did he come to this? Why so suddenly? She didn't even hint to him about it. And then it came to her that when she told him to leave when he felt better, she didn't say leave, she said, get out. And that word has two meanings, and he most likely misunderstood her. The child thought that she asked him to clean up after his recovery, and since he was feeling well now, he started doing it right away. She starts talking to him, and he ignores her, as if he is deliberately trying to show that he is offended and actually understood everything perfectly. The girl just took the books from him so that he wouldn't have to carry heavy things. The guy went the other way to pick up the pieces. It's even worse. Something to say heaviness? Celia reacts to it as if he is very small and does not understand that these are very sharp particles. She explains to a child that he might get hurt with a displeased expression on her face. But inside, she even likes it. That's how she feels that she is now useful to someone. And then he asked a question that was impossible to answer normally. Namely, that is, she saw it, but still did not intend to remove the fragments from the moment they appeared here. The girl tries to avoid the topic, says that it is none of his business anyway, and reminds him that he did it in order to rest and after that to do whatever he wants, but warns that if someone behaves like that, he will not last long here. Damon clenched his fist and replied in a serious voice that he didn't need all of this, and then asked her to honestly admit whether she was going to throw him out because he was a useless child. Even after such thoughts that this may be so, he still intends to prove his worth. He has probably been told this so many times that he has accepted it as a fact, no matter how terrible and sad it may sound. After this, the girl doesn't even know how to correctly say that he's not entirely right. The thing is that she has her own things to do and she won't always be able to look after him. Celia is very sad that in this world, there are such children who were not lucky enough to be in a complete and strong family from birth. It's very difficult to talk now. She feels like every word will be used against her and she will regret every word. The girl no longer wants to say anything. She imagined for a second how he feels now, and that in his place she would have long ago become disillusioned with people. It was indeed a little wrong of her to first take him in and then say that he was only there for the night. She noticed that he had managed to get his hands dirty, so she wet the towels and offered to wipe them of dust and small fragments. She doesn't fully understand what he thinks about all this, how much time she's ready to help him, but when she remembers that no one cares about him anymore, she becomes ashamed to even think about it. And she also really doesn't want to think about what he went through in his time and is going through now. But these thoughts are forced upon her by themselves. One might think that this is all. The boy will go away to rest, and tomorrow they will figure it out as they go along. When suddenly he starts begging not to throw him out, and instead of rejecting him because he is useless, she can take advantage of the fact that he lives nearby because if necessary, he can learn anything. Because it's easier than being back on the streets and living in survival mode, like I have my whole life up until this day. Now it is very difficult for Celia to look him in the eyes. She really wanted someone to help him, because right now in her life, she has no strength, time, or resources for this. He is already starting to tell her that he is used to not eating much, and even suggested that she get a job from which he will give her all the money. Celia got angry and asked him if he could possibly think that she had no money, and also said that she could actually afford to take care of him, and if necessary, several other children as well. Then she regretted that she said this. Now the boy will count on something, or maybe not. He thought that she would remain silent for a long time, that they would never finish this conversation, when suddenly the girl said that since he himself had said that he would do everything that she ordered him to do, then in that case, she asked him to listen very carefully to every word that she was about to tell him. She asked him to look at the bread on the table and then quickly spread some jam on it and eat it all in one go. And as soon as he's had his fill of this, he should quickly go into the room to sleep. There's a free bed just for him there. She also said, just like a tired mother, that what you can demand from your children is good nutrition, lots of walking and sound sleep. She made it clear that these were now his responsibilities, and if something was not done, his stay here would be in question. He didn't answer anything to this because there was nothing more to say. He was even happy that he would stay here at least for some time. After all this, she left him here, went into another room, and of course wished him good night. The girl was already thinking about closing the door, but at the end she asked him to take into account that she would definitely check how he carried out her orders. Everything changes so quickly for them that even now the guy is worried that he will end up on the street anyway. Here he is already lying calmly in bed. Naturally, he can't fall asleep quickly. After all, he needs to think about everything that has happened to him recently. It's been a long time since he's been in a warm and comfortable room, and her order is officially the simplest he's ever received, even though the girl is trying to be strict. In his eyes, she's still very sweet. She was the first one who paid attention to him and didn't pass by. This was much more valuable to him than if some relative had saved him out. Relatives usually do something good for a friend just because they have to. But when it happens from a stranger, it means that he has a truly kind heart. Since he found himself on the street and was left alone with himself, the guy never dreamed that someone would ever care about him. And when some people stole him, he completely lost the meaning of life and resigned himself to the fact that nothing good awaited him anymore, and he would be indebted to them for something until the end of his days. Damon is sure that he won't fall asleep and will lie in bed until the morning, because after such a day it is impossible to calmly close your eyes and not think about anything. When he had already accepted the whole situation a little, he came to a conclusion that was not very pleasant for him. That no matter how good everything was now, there are no miracles in this world. She will probably change over time anyway, just like her previous owners, because all people are the same. At least he is sure of it. On his part, he will simply try not to irritate her and not do anything like that. After which Celia may regret that she sheltered him and took responsibility for him. Even though she said that he would be here as long as he obeyed her, the guy still got used to hoping for the worst, and dreams of staying at least until tomorrow evening, not to mention staying for a few days. Meanwhile, she also doesn't sleep. After all, she needs to digest this day from beginning to end. And the girl also noticed that she has already forgotten about her main business. She has no idea where Chelsea is now, whether everything is okay with her and the Marquis. But since he is not here now and not looking for her, it means that everything is not so bad. Otherwise, he would have already told her everything. Besides this, she is afraid that she might interfere and thus become an obstacle to the meeting between the demon and his chosen one, the main character. This can also happen. It seems to her that in this case, one cannot be too kind to the child, who in the future is destined to become the main male character's full performer. She has already started to think about what she can do to make him leave of his own free will. And all this is literally tearing her apart from the inside. And then a system window appears in front of her, and in that second, while it was appearing, she had a drop of hope that she would be given some kind of hint. There was some recommended book and an inscription. For those who are full of anxiety, there is a fine line between obsession and escape. The girl understood almost nothing from this, but it is better than nothing. All night she tried to figure out what would be the best thing to do as soon as the next day came. Celia couldn't think of anything better to do than listen to the system and read that very book, where something was written about obsession. At some point, a demon appeared in the room, but she didn't notice it because she was sure that he would definitely not wake up anytime soon. And by that time, she will have read at least several books, and maybe more. But as soon as she noticed him, something incomprehensible began to happen to her. She seemed to be afraid of him, because there was no other way to explain it. Immediately after that, she felt terribly awkward and ashamed in front of him, because she herself doesn't even know what to say after that. It's as if a malfunction had occurred in her body that she couldn't control. She realized that she had to talk to him first, because after what he had seen, it would be difficult for him to do so. And then she tells him that while she was thinking all night about how they could both be useful to each other, she came up with something. But to begin with, she introduced herself as the head of a detective agency. And after that, she said that for some time he would work here as her assistant, but so that this would not frighten him. At first, she would not demand anything serious or complicated from him, and also asked to be called director, because she always dreamed of not being addressed that way, but there was no suitable opportunity. She thinks it's a perfect deal. He'll be able to stay safe for a long time, and she'll have more time to develop, because all sorts of small things can be offered to someone else, that is, her new assistant. He looks like he didn't really like it, but he probably just didn't expect it. So he doesn't know what to say. So far, if you look from the outside, she is even much happier than the demon. But it would seem that it should be the other way around. Since a new day had begun, it was time to go to work. The girl took her cape and, of course, gave several instructions to her new assistant. Since he is now her assistant, she will provide him with a roof over his head and food, as well as a small allowance. This is wonderful news that cannot but please. And of course, it is very pleasant to start the day with this, although he does not fully understand that all this is real. It seemed to him that there was some kind of catch in this rather than everything seeming so simple and easy. Just in case, Celia warned him that he can't leave the office without her permission. She doesn't want other people to stare at her assistant, especially if he's on the street. There's a higher chance that he'll be kidnapped again. She asked him to be a good boy and stay at home, and if possible not to open the door to anyone except her. Because if someone suddenly found out that he was there, people could pretend to be clients but in fact turn out to be scammers and come up with a way to take him with them. If he gets bored, there are plenty of books here for that case. It wouldn't hurt to read something, and if he wants, she hinted that they could clean up a bit, but that's not necessary. The girl understands perfectly well that there is too much work here and one child cannot cope here, so it is better that they do this together someday than for him to strain his back now. Celia is very glad that she went out to the main street today. She's already tired of this grayness, She wants to relax and look at other people. The weather is so beautiful today that she would love to take the baby with her, but it could be dangerous for both of them. The girl has now decided not to waste time. She is getting to know the updated system. Suddenly, there will be something interesting there. Meanwhile, she got advice on obsession. Actively pretend to care about a person, but at the same time isolate him from the outside world, thus tying him to yourself, the girl thought. Is this normal at all? Because if these methods do not make the demon run away, she will personally find this author. However, it seems to her that everything is going according to plan now. Only sometimes she feels ashamed that she plans to make him leave her. But if you remember the fact that he is actually a stranger to her and she has already done so much for him, then her intention no longer seems so selfish. She also can't wait to see what he'll be like when he grows up, because as we know, all the main characters are pretty handsome. But most likely it won't be the case that he will grow up and live with her, or close to her. By that time, their paths will have diverged, so there is no point in even thinking about it. She is sure of one thing for sure. It is better for him to return to his original story as soon as possible. She saved him from the villains. And now all that remains is to push him on the right path, and everything will happen by itself, as it should have been. Everything was calm until the moment she remembered that it wouldn't hurt to find out how the Marquis was doing, in case he was looking for her everywhere, and she switched to someone else's child. She even feels a little awkward in front of him. Now she needs to somehow decide to come to him again and guess so that he ends up at home. And as for that girl, she had such a complicated past that it's hard to predict what kind of person she's become now, after the death of her parents. She was entrusted to her uncle, Viscount Larman. She obeyed him in everything and was afraid to disappoint him, so as not to be left alone on the street, because subconsciously she thought that he could do the same to her. Before that, she lived in a cramped room, doing housework. It was just at that period of her life that fruits became food that at least gave some strength. After eating apples and other fruits, she clearly felt that she was becoming stronger, and thanks to these powers, she could be useful to her uncle. He always told her that she was very fragile, so she should definitely eat more fruits that he gave her, and also always reminded her that without them she would feel much worse and weaker. While she trusted him, the man without a drop of conscience turned away and waited with a smile for the moment when the small drops of poison that had been entering their body all this time would finally begin to act. He made sure it happened as slowly as possible so that no one would have the slightest idea that it could be from the very fruits that she ate more often than any other food. It is surprising that in those moments when they were all sitting at the table and the younger brother asked to try those very fruits, he was asked to sit quietly, and the girl never saw him eat them. Then it seemed to her that everything was fine, that she was part of the family, and it couldn't be that such a terrible plan was planned against her. At that time, she was not at all embarrassed by the fact that even after her marriage, her uncle continued to send her fruits. Chelsea treated the Marchioness to these apples, but if she had only known the truth, she would never have done it in her life. There were times when the woman refused to eat anything. She couldn't look at food, and the girl insisted on eating at least half an apple. She probably still feels terribly ashamed of that to this day. It is possible that she has already found out the truth. This is probably the main reason why she stopped communicating with everyone she used to consider family. One day, when she was asked not to disturb the lady unexpectedly began to take an interest in books. She opened the first page and didn't notice how from that moment on, literature simply captivated her with arms and legs. So she came to a very interesting chapter called The Damned Seed. There was a story about a fruit that has horrific toxic properties. It sprouts while sucking the life out of everyone around it. After that, she tried to reassure herself that everything would be fine, because no one else ate as many of them as she did. She tried not to think about the bad, but inside there was still an uneasy feeling that even a small piece of a poisonous apple could take someone's life. This may explain the fact that she wanted to leave this family so quickly, because she felt guilt that could no longer be corrected. Words cannot describe how many times, when she was left alone for even a couple of minutes, the girl cried and wanted to turn back time so that she would not give those apples to anyone. She didn't even feel as sorry for herself as she did for a woman who had done nothing wrong to anyone and who felt sick from some fruit. What can we talk about if she can hardly even look at this house? Imagining that there could have been a happy family here if she hadn't ruined everything. The girl has almost made a decision at this point to tell the Marquis everything, even if it's too late. Today is the very day she returned to this house, and now the guy is unlikely to let her go from here. He is so sure that she will stay here under any circumstances, but it is unclear how he himself will want her to stay here when he finds out the truth. He probably won't even want to know her, let alone leave Chelsea here for permanent residence. At the moment, when they were just unpacking her things, an assistant came up, who by chance found the lady's will that very day. She has 2 letters, one for the gentleman, one for the lady. It's just strange that she did it this way instead of writing everything on one piece of paper. Probably it was done for a reason. And in the meantime, the girl is surprised that there is a separate letter for her. She understands that there will probably be some good and pleasant words there. They will be very difficult to read because she understands that she does not deserve it. The letter to her reads as follows. My dear Chelsea, the time spent with you has been a blessing to me, of course, as it has been to Graden. And there is only one thing I want to ask you. Could you continue to grow the spiritual flower? I didn't succeed, but I believe in you and your skills. I left you a great gardening notebook. I'm counting on you, Chelsea. What she is experiencing inside right now is simply impossible to convey in words. There is only one thing on her mind now. Mother died because of me, but she still handed over her precious notebook with notes. Will I really be able to take care of the spiritual plant right now? I am most unsure of myself, but in order to atone for my guilt for her death, I must fulfill my mother's last wish. A spiritual flower, a plant with beautiful buds during the flowering period, but it is very capricious, and not many can find an approach to it. Chelsea struggled to get the flower to bloom, relying on a gardening notebook her mother gave her. But, contrary to her hopes, she couldn't do anything, no matter how hard she tried. In the end, these failures only increased her feelings of guilt, so she decided to run away. And now, when she looks at them, she feels very calm and pleasant in her soul. Suddenly, the Marquis came up to her, and she didn't even hear how he got there, so she was a little scared. She didn't even ask how she could help him because she simply couldn't help but ask how he knew that she had gone here. At first, he didn't answer anything. He just looked at her as if it was some kind of strange question, and then asked his question, whether he understood correctly that she hated him very much. So she left him and everything he gave her and just walked away like nothing happened. He always thought it was because she couldn't even stand the sight of him. And now she wants to hear if it's true or not. This is the very question that needs to be answered honestly, and the whole truth told from beginning to end. But whether she decides to do this or not is impossible to predict. The girl had never seen such an expression on the Marquis' face before. He frightens her a little, but at the same time she understands him perfectly, and in his place she would ask the same questions and look at him with the same look. Tears began to appear on her face. She tried to say with a lump in her throat that everything was not as he thought, and that he is not guilty of anything. It's the opposite. It's she who made a big mistake for which she should apologize. At first, she tried to stay on her feet, but then she had no strength left. The girl gave in to her emotions and began to fall. Then she tried to cover her eyes with her hands so that he wouldn't see them, because there was too much pain in them that he might not be ready for. The Marquis, meanwhile, doesn't understand anything, not even a word. He is completely perplexed and surprised that she reacted to this topic in such a way. She was already ready to say the first words when suddenly he begins to say that the death of his mother is not her fault. How could she have thought all this time? After that, he said that the Marquis knew everything and had forgiven her long ago, after which the girl raised her eyes to ask how he knew about it. The guy explained that at first he didn't understand what the will she left him meant, but now he knows everything. And from now on, Chelsea would like to know everything in more detail. The will stated the following. Graden, please take care of Chelsea. You are still far from the ideal husband, and the girl kept enough to herself. She could not share it with you. Try to communicate with her more, and pay attention to her. After all, you are husband and wife, and I know better than anyone how little time I have left. Chelsea is not to blame for anything. Please don't let this child take all the blame. And meanwhile, the guy says that if he had immediately tried to understand the meaning of her last words, if he had initially tried to talk to her about this time, he would never have left her alone in such a situation, and now everything would be different. He sincerely believes that he is the only one who escaped everything that happened. And he also admitted that when she left, it seemed to him that his soul was torn out. And now he is not afraid to say directly that he cannot live without her. She cried at these words because she had never heard anything like this before and could not imagine that this conversation would end like this. And he also has something for her. The guy has wanted to do this for a long time, and now he finally has such an opportunity. But now it also makes sense. He prepared this gift for her in advance, and also said that he doesn't want a contract marriage. He wants a real relationship. He also said that he would not survive if something forced them to be apart, and asked them to love each other and be close until the end of their days. If it weren't for some circumstances, she would have immediately said that she accepted his proposal. But there is one thing. But she has already completely gotten used to this poisonous. I wanted to continue telling him that he didn't need all this, but he said with confidence that he would find a way and cure her in any way, no matter how, he would just do it. And he also promised that with him, she would be happy, healthy, and would never need anything again. Naturally, after such promises, her heart melted. She no longer needed anything, only to be near him and feel how much he needs her. It's all so sweet that even he couldn't hold back. He shed a tear, just so she wouldn't see it. like a real man. For some time they hugged very tightly, were silent, and now she tells him that she wants to say a lot of things but does not know how to formulate it all together. To which he tells her that no words are needed. He understands and feels everything perfectly. And after that, she felt even better than ever before. And now, she became interested in talking about the fact that even her mother never told her about this. And he somehow found out that she had been eating poisonous fruits all this time. At that moment, Celia joined them and answered for him that, in fact, it was she who told everything. She certainly came a little at the wrong time, but now it is much more important for her to see how all this is unfolding live. Everything is so cute that she burst into tears just looking at them. At that moment, Chelsea thought that she had never seen this person before, but she seemed familiar to her. Suddenly, the guy made it clear that someone here was actually superfluous. The girl could of course argue, but she understands them very well, and in their place she would behave exactly the same way. Before leaving and not disturbing them, Celia simply reminded them that, as they might notice, it was already late. At first no one understood what she meant. Chelsea asked what it meant, to which the girl replied that it was actually time to open the greenhouse, and these words were not as ordinary as they might seem. They would bring a very deep meaning to themselves. No one argued with her. Chelsea went ahead. She hadn't been here for so long that she wanted to do it personally. Celia, meanwhile, is very happy that she will finally get there, although at the beginning she was sure that it was practically impossible. It feels like this moment is lasting too long. But somehow the more time passes, the more obsessive thoughts the girl had. She wondered why the Dowager Marchioness asked Chelsea in her will to grow that flower. Or was it because she wanted to continue trying, considering that she didn't succeed? But in the novel, this spiritual flower played an important role. Besides, Celia spent all the cash at the port, so she didn't have enough to read the ending. Now there is only one way to find out everything. I wonder what will happen next, because it seems that this is the moment when all the most interesting things begin, and very soon many secrets will be revealed that no one could even guess about before. Until this moment, no one had come here so as not to spoil the atmosphere here. Even the Marquis himself restrained himself from coming here. The girl opened the door, came in first, and was overwhelmed by simply indescribable feelings. She remembered those wonderful times, and now it is difficult for her to even say a few words. The lump in her throat simply doesn't allow her to move or say anything. She again felt guilty that that woman isn't with them now. Here, literally every sprout or sand reminds her of her. This makes her soul feel both pained and calm. Literally everything around seems to convey the state of the pure soul of the person who looked after all this. She wants to lie here for a very long time, because this way the girl feels that the dead Marquis is nearby. Now she wants her mother to see it with her own eyes, but unfortunately, this will never happen, no matter how much she dreams about it. Chelsea is sure that she would be happy with this, and at that moment the Marquis came up to her because he sees that she can't cope on her own. He understands that there is no need to interfere with her. It is enough to just be there until she speaks out and she herself feels better. Now the girl must throw out everything that has not been accumulating all this time, otherwise she will suffer even more painfully later. It's also very hard to watch from the outside, but there's nothing to be done. That's fate, and you can't escape it. Celia at this moment stands there, doesn't go anywhere, and thinks that she was finally able to achieve success. It's wonderful, but there is a question. Why hasn't the system turned her off yet? All this time, the girl thought that this is how it should end. But what she sees in front of her is very different from what she expected. She mentally turned to the author and asked if he really decided to make fun of her, because if this is the ending, then it is somehow pathetic. Then, she started calling the system window to find out at least something. It immediately appeared with the information that since the spiritual grass had sprouted, she was awarded a gift for the achievement. Everyone loves gifts, so she was more happy than upset. Now she wants to find out what it is. For some time, Celia waited for something unknown, then decided not to dwell on it, and turned to Chelsea to say that she has found a way to help overcome the poisoning. But so far, no one understands what she is talking about, and why she is so sure that something can be done about it. The girl began by saying that every morning dew forms on the spiritual grass, but only if it recognizes someone as its master. For Chelsea, this is the only way to survive. This dewdrop has healing and antipodal properties. In other words, when consumed regularly, it can remove poison toxins from the body. Meanwhile, several days passed, during which time all the problems were resolved. Celia completed her mission and even increased her rank thanks to it. She really likes this ending. She is sincerely happy for everyone who was satisfied and whom she was able to help. And she also has a feeling that even though she did all this not for herself, she feels so good now, as if all this time she was dealing with her problems and now they have finally disappeared. She is of course very sorry that she did not see the main scenes, but who else would have had the chance to witness this touching story between the main characters of the novel with the main tag, Obsession? Yes, she is that lucky girl. Unlike what she thought about all this at the very beginning. Now she thinks that she got the perfect case with such characters. Just think. She managed to earn cash and also read a novel. All pluses? She is already interested in what characters she will meet next time. She even started to talk about her type. These are dark-haired men. Just as she was thinking about dark-haired people, she suddenly remembered one person with dark hair, whom she had completely forgotten about. The girl was very scared. He was a child after all, and anything could have happened to him during this time. She screamed so loudly that even the driver got scared. After that, he realized that the route had been rebuilt, began to speed up, and promised that the journey would take a minimum amount of time. Here she is already back in a hurry, knocking on the doors, on the windows, but no one opens. The girl begins to look closely in fear that he has already escaped or someone has stolen him. Her hands and legs are shaking, and looking out the window, she doesn't even notice that everything inside is shining like never before. There is only one thing on her mind. Where is Demon? What could have happened to him? Celia worries about him as if he were her own child. The girl hears some sound, turns around. There was a demon standing there, but at first she didn't recognize him at all. Then she realized that there could be no one here except him, and his very familiar hair immediately made it clear who was standing in front of her. This time he looks kind of weird, like he's trying to disguise himself, and he also has some cleaning supplies attached to his clothes and a huge pile of books in his hands. The girl doesn't understand what's going on, but it's not that important compared to the fact that he's here and he's okay. He started to tell her that while she was gone, he wanted to do something useful and make her happy when she returned. But he didn't see her smiling. He even felt a little uncomfortable, but then she turned around and only now realized how clean it was around. The surfaces literally sparkled. There wasn't a speck of dust on them. Previously, this place looked like some kind of abandoned building. Some people did not even immediately understand that this was someone's office when they came here for a consultation. And now it's so clean and cozy here, as if someone had done some renovations here, but that's how it was before. Only under a huge layer of dust that no one had touched. Celia seriously thought that he might have some secret talent for cleaning because there was no other way to explain it. She is so grateful to him that there aren't even enough words to describe it. And she also feels somehow awkward that he could have done nothing and still did the maximum he had time for. The girl has no idea how he feels now, how tired he is. And meanwhile, it seems to him that, judging by his reaction, he did something wrong. Damon started to explain that he was simply following the advice from the book, but she didn't quite understand what that had to do with it. He showed her this book, and after that thanked her for allowing him to read it in his free time. The book turned out to be very useful. Only then she meant that he should rest and just read something for himself, without straining himself and only if it was for pleasure. The guy still looks at her with the thought that he wanted to do the best, but in the end she is still unhappy. Now he has no desire to do anything. He asked her directly if he had really done something so wrong that he had ruined her mood. To this she tells him that of course not. How could he even think such a thing? And at that moment she thought that since he disobeyed her, then it only plays into her hands. And if she starts to doubt and treat him as it is beneficial to her, it will definitely piss him off. In the end, she turned this situation in such a way as to make him feel guilty so that he would want to move out from her. She would even give him money for this. It may sound ugly, but she is also a person, and at the same time, she really missed solitude and silence. Celia asks if he really means that she used the excuse of taking out the trash to go outside, even though she asked him not to. And also reminded that, at the very beginning, she said that she can't stand it when other people look at her things. He looked at her in such a way that she closed her eyes because after that she couldn't continue yelling at him. In the end, she changed her mind about being indignant, calmly stroked his head and said the following in a pleasant voice. Since he cleaned up here so well, then she probably got carried away and there is nothing wrong with him going out somewhere, especially if it was for business. The girl praised him again, and for him it really sounded as if he had been waiting for these words his whole life. She thought to herself that it was too early to worry. There was still plenty of time. Besides, if she suddenly started acting like some kind of normal person, the demon would most likely just think that she was weird. Especially since the guy is still just a child, it will take him at least 5 years to become obsessed with the main male character. And after some time, she will definitely develop immunity to this face, which has learned to manipulate very well. Maybe he does it not on purpose, but he succeeds. She mentally asked him to wait. As soon as all his charm runs out, she will give him a kick, money, and send him into an independent life, because he will not be able to be under her guardianship forever. At least, she does not want this, and perhaps it will even be better for him to live separately. From herself, she will only give him the opportunity not to remain on the street and to live in comfortable conditions. For now, she just plans to live her life happily, not take on unnecessary problems and teach him life lessons while he's here. Meanwhile, 2 months have passed. They have become more or less comfortable living together. They have divided up the responsibilities, and it seems like everyone is happy with what they have agreed on. Today is a very ordinary day. Demon woke up early, wanted to please her, and has been cooking something delicious for her for the second hour already. And Celia is sleeping and doesn't even suspect that a surprise awaits her. He tried to cook as quietly as possible, but she woke up from the smell because it was difficult even for the neighbors on the street. He understood that after yesterday she would most likely wake up in a bad mood, but food should brighten up this difficult morning a little. He already puts the bowl of soup on the table, although the guy is used to the smell, but it is hard for him to restrain himself from eating everything to the last drop without her. He just thought how she could be angry with him, because she herself would hardly be able to do such a thing. And then, Celia comes into the kitchen. She walked in as if she had worked all night on a construction site. Her appearance leaves much to be desired, but she probably doesn't know that yet. It's unlikely that she's interested in that yet. The girl sat down at the table without a word. Didn't even say hello or ask whose portion was on that plate. But she could have asked. After some time, she said good morning to him. And he reminded her that it was actually already lunchtime, and she had missed the mornings. She says that it seemed like it was just early morning, but she's wrong. Meanwhile, a smile appears on her face, and this is already pleasing. She probably decided not to spoil the mood of everyone around her, because few people would need to be in the presence of a person who has problems without a reason. Here they are already sitting opposite each other. The guy apparently decided to eat later without her, so that there would be fewer reasons that she might not like it. Suddenly, she gets angry at the way he eats or that her portion is smaller than his, and that could also happen. He has gotten to know her too well lately. At that moment, Celia caught herself thinking, but he seemed to have grown taller and looked much more mature, as if not a couple of months had passed, but several years. Just recently, she looked at him like a child, and now she has a grown man in front of her, who she is even embarrassed to yell at. She even asked him if he was really human because he was growing much faster compared to other children. He says he can't say for sure about his age because he doesn't know his date of birth, but she didn't know that. Out of the blue, he says they have a problem with the roof, and it needs to be fixed urgently before it rains or gets cold. He noticed at that place that the roof had started to leak. He thought it was his imagination, but now I'm sure that this can't be delayed. In a rainy autumn or a cold winter, repairs will be physically problematic, so there is no choice. We need to do it in the coming days, but it does not seem that she is interested in this. She only said that it is all because the building itself is very old. In her head, it all looks something like this. You can just replace the old boards with new ones, but she does not take into account the fact that if there is a problem with the roof, you need to redo absolutely everything, not just what is visible at first glance. Because you can repair the roof every season, but then do it and spend time on it? If you can do everything in one go and do it well, and for many years, from you she suggested to buy a stepladder. Damon says that it is a good idea, but it is not only about that. Since it is the rainy season now and it will last for a long time, repairs should ideally be started from today. He left it at the table and went off to look for some book with instructions because he has no idea how to do it, but he still doesn't intend to leave the roof without repairs. Her thoughts at this moment, he is old enough to fix the roof without a stepladder. But why then doesn't he run away and, like any other teenager, didn't want to move out from her? It seems to her that the time has come to act and somehow hint to him about it, only very carefully. At this moment, she receives advice from the system. Get close enough to the object to make him feel uneasy. Celia thought that this was a good option, so he would definitely be disappointed in her and would start thinking about how to start distancing himself. The girl immediately ran up to him. She doesn't know where to start yet, but she's not going to sit still. She asks if he has found the repair book yet, but he has been looking for so long, only he hasn't found anything yet and is starting to... Damon found a book with a very strange title, but he thinks that it is definitely not what he needs. On it, instead of a title, it says, "For all the couples in the world, if you want me to hate you, be my roof." He wanted to move to the second shelf, but before he could take a step, she had already extended her hand to this book, only in such a way that it looked a little unusual. She had never done this before. The guy visibly tensed up. He didn't understand what was happening, and he also had some ambiguous thoughts. So much so that it became embarrassing that he even thought about it, although she started it all herself. From the outside, it seems that his eyes clearly show how he wanted to avoid, or at least leave this room. She starts to be so close to him that there is literally no distance between them. It's amazing that he still reacts normally to this. He probably hasn't realized yet what's going on, hasn't realized it, and is trying to justify everything by saying that it can't be what he thinks. Everything is starting to go too far. She is already so close that she can smell his body, and he holds on with all his might not to ask what she is doing, and most importantly, why. If only he knew the real reason, he would be very offended, and in the meantime she admires his long eyelashes, which she had not noticed before. And it is not surprising because she had never had to get so close to him before. Suddenly, someone knocked on the front door. Some girl came to see Celia, probably for a consultation. She asks if there is anyone here, but no one is reacting to her yet, not even a single one. The client is standing at the threshold, and when the girl accidentally turned in that direction, only then did she see that someone had come to them. She greeted me happily and asked what her business was because, to tell the truth, she was already really missing her job. Based on her experience, she's already going through options of how she can help, and with such a smile, as if she'd been kept locked up all this time and now was given the opportunity to do something. Damon at this time looks at her as if he had something in mind, or maybe he just liked it when she touched him. Not much time has passed. The assistant has already prepared tea for them, created a comfortable environment, and Celia finds out the main requirement of the client. She wants help to find her ex-fiancé. Celia was recommended to her by a friend who works as a maid at the Graden estate, and she really hopes for her help. To begin with, the girl asked where the lady had come from because any information, even the most basic, can sometimes be much more important than it seems. The lady said that she had been working for the Laurent family lately, but Celia was slightly horrified when she heard that name. Admiral of the Western Fleet, Mr. Karl Laurent, the owner of the estate. He is suddenly on land, but is, a worthy man, respected by all. But some time ago, he suddenly broke off his engagement to Lady Elsa. Since then, no one knows where she is now. Anyway, she is here today to ask to find this person. The detective is most interested in finding out why the girl is looking for her ex-bride. Did any valuables really disappear after she left? To which the client replied that everything is not like that at all. They are all just very worried about her sudden disappearance. And she is also very worried that before she disappeared, Mrs. Elsa's face did not look at all as if she really wanted the engagement to be broken off, as if she was hiding something. She is sure that the gentleman is also worried about her, and that this matter cannot be left to chance, and it would be better to find her by any means necessary. It is so important to her that the girl even took Celia by the hands, grabbed them very tightly, and began to beg to find their mistress, even if it is impossible. She promised that if everything worked out, she would personally ask the gentleman to pay much more than the detective usually charges for his work. In the end, Celia, of course, could not refuse. She promised to do everything possible, but at the same time asked to take into account that she cannot guarantee anything. She is not a sorceress, but just a detective. The system accepted her request. A new book was added to the library, How to Become the Hero's Wife. Now a new investigation begins. The main thing is that after some time she does not regret it. She already understands that it won't be easy. She needs to start all over again because she hasn't learned any useful information, which means that the advantages of figuring things out from scratch. Thanks to the book, she understood at least something. Otherwise, she would have spent at least several days to figure out at least a little what was what. This time, the main character is a military man, and for her, it sounds like a gold mine. She is especially attracted by the generous reward. If she completes the task, she will be able to renovate her office beyond recognition. If there is money left, it will even be possible to decorate the interior with some items as she always wanted. A demon crept up to her to ask if he could put the tea away already, or if she would like a new batch, to which she told him that it was already time to remove all unnecessary things, because now nothing interests him except business, neither food nor anything else. The guy already feels that in the near future he will receive minimal attention from her. But since there is nothing wrong with that, he tries not to be offended in advance. Then he came up to her again after a while, wanted to show her some book. She got scared again, as if she had lost her memory and forgot that she was not alone here. This book that she had been looking for before, the guy thought that it would be very timely and pleasant. But in the end, everything turned out as usual. She only had to look at the title of the book to feel terribly awkward. It was written there, How to Seduce a Young Man by One Ignorant Person. After that, he immediately seemed to evaporate from her field of vision. He was nowhere to be seen, and the book itself looked like a hint that he had figured her out. The girl started to feel terrible. She seemed to understand everything, but at the same time, she had a lot of questions. She started talking to herself in her mind that everything was not like that at all. The unpleasant, obsessed woman had now turned into an ignorant, lonely, and obsessed one. But then she thought that this could be a great opportunity for her plan. Because as we know, any normal person will run away, flashing their heels from such specimens. And then she reads one inscription at the bottom of the title, a super accurate analysis of the inner world of young guys, which immediately interested her. And it also just so happened that this book is by the same author that Demon read a couple of months ago. Despite all this, the author's initials seem suspiciously familiar to her. And then she remembers a note she received some time ago. There was a mysterious letter R, which is very similar to the one written on the book. She, of course, finds it hard to believe, but it looks like that bouquet was also sent by the same person. She started looking for where she could put it, and then she called the demon because he was also nowhere to be seen. He appeared very unexpectedly. She was afraid of him again, although she herself called him, and should have understood that he could appear at any moment. After a couple of minutes, Celia calmed down and asked if he remembered by any chance the bouquet and card that were there about 2 months ago. She immediately had the thought that he might start educating her, that she doesn't know where her own things are. Instead, the guy seemed angry and asked in a serious voice who sent her the bouquet with the note, as if he cared. She starts to be happy that it just said that the sender is Mr. R, so she wants to look at it. He calmly replied that he hadn't seen anything like that, although since he had been tidying it up, he must have accidentally thrown it out and not paid attention to it. It seems to him that she could rather hide it herself somewhere, where he is forbidden to go, and the only places where she asked him not to clean were her bedroom and her desk. And that is exactly where he needs to look for the mysterious note. Celia starts rummaging through the desk, saying that she didn't see anything in the bedroom, which means the note is somewhere here. When she started to open the drawer, which can be locked, for some reason it didn't open, she pulled with all her might. But still nothing happened. It was as if it was glued. Celia got so angry that she ripped out the box with the handle. Everything immediately flew everywhere, but she didn't care. She wants to find that piece of paper so badly that she is ready to smash everything around here to dust for this purpose. All sorts of small pieces of paper and notes scattered in the air, making it impossible to see even one. Which means that in the near future she will be collecting this for a very long time. Damon looks at this and barely restrains himself from screaming that this is too much. He spent only his energy to keep order here, and she created a commotion here in a matter of seconds. There is literally not a single clean area left in the room. Everything is covered in papers, and the more the guy looks at it, the less patience he has. He just wants to leave here and make her feel a drop of shame. She says that she will definitely clean everything up just a little later, but now she has something to do. More important than which there is nothing. Here she has already found that very bouquet. It is strange that it was hidden in the table. But is it really because of some note and a bouquet that she will push her main task to later and waste this day instead of being productive? She says she knew he was here somewhere, and she still can't believe she ever left him in such a place. She will never do that to flowers again, and she was also surprised that it lasted so long and looked good. Damon asks with a displeased look if this is really some new method of organizing, hinting that this is too much, and she justifies herself by saying that she actually did it on purpose. And thanks to this, she would have immediately realized that someone had touched her things. He had no choice but to say, okay, and give her time to look at the note again. Looking at all this, she has only one question. Could all this be a coincidence? And a triple one at that. There is something else suspicious. Usually after the transmigration of souls, those around noticed changes, but not in her case. Once she had to communicate with the locals, it turned out that they could not think that someone lived here. Only those who were somehow connected with the detective case or had once contacted her knew about this place. Usually people were surprised that she came out of this building and said that this was her home and workplace at the same time. There is no one in this world who really knew her before, but they take her for granted, and she even has things going on. The only people who seem to know her are Mr. R, the author of all those crazy books, and the system window. She became incredibly curious to find out who she had moved into, and she was so focused on it that she forgot that she was talking to a demon. He says that it seems to him that she is quite close to Mr. R, who sent her this bouquet, and no matter how it sounds, she can guess about it herself. The girl is very scared by such words when she realizes that she knows less about herself than she thinks. It is not very pleasant. The girl thought that she needed to make a list of who she should punch in the face at the first meeting, and the first on the list would be that same Mr. Ari. Meanwhile, she asked her assistant to put the bouquet somewhere because the more she looks at it, the more she feels cheated. The guy couldn't refuse. He was her assistant after all, and had to do everything she asked him to do, although taking this bouquet in his hands wasn't very pleasant. Celia thought that since she didn't know anything about this mysterious man, she would have to focus on what she could do. Many years have passed since the girl lost her parents in a fire, and since then, she has had to live with these balls. No one even dared to look at her. But one day she received a letter with a proposal of marriage. Probably the thing is that he is a military man and couldn't find anyone else. The girl heard about him, that he is very handsome and talented, and also thought that despite his efforts, he can't find a suitable partner. And yet, at that moment, it seemed to her that living as a woman who no one cared about was not so bad. In her opinion, she might as well look at this man who proposed to someone like her. This man does not look like a man who has spent his whole life at sea, and his smile is like the most tenderness and a breath of wind. Since then, he had a tradition of giving her a bouquet of flowers every time they met, and each time it was a different flower. If they were even slightly similar to the previous ones, the girl had the right to be offended no matter how strange it may sound. During that period, she constantly told him that he didn't need to try to be so kind for her sake if he didn't want to, because in fact he didn't even want this marriage. She was sure of that and believed that on his part it was enough to simply observe the rules of decency and not offend her. After such words, he was surprised every time and asked why she thought so, and she asked the same question. How can he argue with this? Because every time he looks at her face, he does not experience any feelings. So many times he tried to explain to her that she was wrong, but it didn't work. She was confident in her position and didn't want to listen to anything about it not being so. The guy lived every day with the hope that one day she would feel his love and would never again say those words that hurt his heart so much. Time after time, it happens more and more painfully. Most often, he liked to give her blue flowers because this was the color he associated with this girl. She was already so used to it that she forgot that there are other flowers in the world. Of different shades, I only like blue ones. With all this, he managed to surprise her. He found such different blue flowers that each bouquet was special, not like the previous one. What she didn't like most about him was that even when he wanted to prove her wrong about him, he didn't do anything about it. He just spoke words, and that was it. She really loved men's actions. No words surprised her, and over time it even sounded like an insult to her, as if promising her something was already enough. That's how she started thinking about divorce. No matter how much she hinted to him that love is not only shown in words, he simply didn't hear her. His wife didn't hate him. She just wanted something new to see and feel that a man needed her. Since he never showed it to her, but only talked about it, she had to make a decision to leave him. I wish I knew. This is such an instructive lesson, and she just wanted to scare him, or the girl finally decided that they are not on the same path. Several times she tried to come back to him because of habit, but then she left anyway, and that was her main mistake. Now her husband thinks that if she left, then sooner or later she will come back anyway. And to get her back, you don't need to make any effort. That very day when she came back to him for one day, all she did was think that maybe it just seemed to her and there were no serious problems in their relationship. Come. And the hardest thing was to deal with all this alone, because there was no point in talking to him. She had no friends, and in principle, the girl was not a trusting person. She never told anyone anything about her personal life and especially about any problems. So everyone thought that everything was fine with them until she finally disappeared from his life.